June 2015. The Ochelli Effect is live. I'm your host, Chuck Ochelli. We are running this out on ucy.tv at ucy.tv/TOE. That's where the live show is. That's where the archives for this disaster that comes out of my mind a couple of times a week. 3 times live, 1 time replayed on UCY. Anyway, if you go over there, you can find the YouTube channel. You can find the archives for all this stuff in case you're catching it somewhere else or you're using one of those applications on those fondle devices of choice. There you go. So tonight, with any luck, I will have Roger Landry in the first hour. And then it'll be about that time where we'll be able to bring on JJink from Against the Wall. Anybody who listens to UCY would be totally familiar with JJink. But, hey, what can you do? Anyhow, like I was saying, I do appreciate you tuning in no matter how it is you decide to do it. It's been an interesting couple of weeks. I don't know what everybody else thinks about the whole thing with the POTUS and utilizing the N-word on the podcast of the WTF and all that kind of good stuff. And doesn't that just feed right on into the agenda of making sure that we are absolutely separated, divided, and conquered at all times? Doesn't it work perfectly? Let's keep up the pressure. After all, it has nothing to do with the police state. It's all about race. After all, it has nothing to do with anything else but race, race, race. Remember, the race card is the dirtiest one in the deck, and it works, or at least it used to. And they got to play it now while the millennials are starting to factor it out. And that's all I'm going to say about that right now. Well, I don't know. Maybe if it aggravates me a little more as it ruminates in my brain, I'll get at it some more. I do believe I have Roger Landry with me, the founder, the main ranter, my friend, an amazing individual who represents the LibertyBeacon.com. That's all one word, thelibertybeacon.com. And I love what he passed to me as a primer for today's conversation just a little while ago. How you doing tonight, Roger?
I'm doing well. It's rather, I don't know. It puts me in a quandary when I hear someone like you say that something is rattling around in your brain. I would think that your head is so full of so many different things on a continuous basis that there's not room for much rattling.
Well, you know, that is the odd point here. There is actually plenty of room because rent in there is not cheap, okay? And So some of the rats do scurry out every once in a while, although it is a bit of a tenement. I know my mind is a mess, but
I was told by an instructor, a Navy instructor. I was going through one of the schools, and I honestly thought that this chief was paying me a compliment. And he told me, he said, "You do understand that if you ever die, and somebody wanted to buy your brain, it would be worth a fortune." Now, I immediately jumped on, feeling that this guy was telling me that I had such a powerful brain that it would be worth a fortune. And I said, "Well, thank you, Chief." And he said, "Now, there's an example of just how stupid you are." He said, "When you buy a used car, do you buy a used car because it has 100,000 miles on it, or do you buy a used car that has 10,000 miles on it?" Obviously, you go for the one that has the least amount of mileage on it because you want to put the miles on it. It's a great mechanism. Both of them are great mechanisms, but one of them is closer to the end of its life than the other. So when you die, your brain is going to be worth a fortune, not because of how powerful it is, but because it's rarely ever been used.
ah, see,
And
that's
I
the
jumped
thing.
right into that hook, line, and sinker.
You sure did, and that's exactly how that works. Of course, if I tried to donate my brain to science, they'd want to know how much I had to pay them to accept it. I know
Yeah.
that. It's okay.
Well,
It's
I
okay.
won't argue that point with you. I could, but I won't because it's a huge sidetrack.
It definitely is. It isn't that the point of a lot of this stuff. And you know what? Wanted to make commentary about how it is you and I ended up on ground zero real quick because this was kind of interesting. Um, it really the way it started is I was kind of contacted by somebody over there, and they asked me who did I know that had serious knowledge, that had a military background, that also knew something about the military industrial complex and could speak extremely well. Plus, wait a minute, could speak extremely well and knew something about Jade Helm.
Oh,
And the first name that came to mind was yours.
well,
So,
yeah. Well, other than the extremely intelligent part, I sort of fit the billet on everything else. But they have gotten a hold of me and told me that we need to do that again. And I'm thinking that from the way it was put to me, that it would be the entire panel from the first show. That was a very pleasant show, and I'm a little surprised because I thought that Clyde was a little bit more mainstream than he actually is, but he actually threw about a 60-second rant at us that just I had to start clapping. I thought it was great.
oh, it was beautiful. It was
Yeah,
beautiful. No, see, Clyde is weird. He's kind of like that. That's why I like him because he's the bridge between the alternative and the mainstream, in my estimation.
I would
That
agree.
That's
Yeah.
why I really appreciate him because he's kind of doing a balancing act over there. And yeah, he gets weird and he gets on the ghost chasing thing every now and then. But what the hell, man? It's his, it's
It's his
his
show.
bag. Yeah.
Yes.
And you know what? If I wanted to get into that once in a while, I would. I do whatever I want. But
Oh man, one of these days I'm going to start up a radio show that I'm going to do on a weekly basis about extraterrestrials, the secret space fleet, and how long humanity has been visited by extraterrestrials. Believe me, as much in-depth study as I have done and research on any of the political or the health topics that we discuss, unbeknownst to anybody out there, I have done at least as much, if not more, on this topic. I just don't bring it up because there's way too much tyranny right now that needs to be addressed. And whether it's health, whether it's political, whether it's perpetual warfare, these things are of severe immediacy. So, but one of these days, hopefully, we will move ourselves into a position where I can start to relax a little bit and discuss the things that I know are just as real, just as relevant, but not quite as, I don't know, the necessity isn't there
the
to put them.
immediacy, the
uh,
immediacy, I think, is what the point is. I mean, there,
Probably.
there's a real immediate. I mean, look, I could sit and do shows on the occult. I really could. I've got a lot of study in there. I know a lot about some very obscure religious practices, about various groups that are not being represented out there in any media anywhere. And some of that stuff could tie perfectly into the show you're talking about.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully you and I could work together on that as well. I would really appreciate it.
Oh, that would be a great show. You
Yeah.
and I doing that together? Oh my God. Alex Jones, move aside because I got to tell you something. That windbag, we could replace him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, with just a little bit of. Anyway, I don't want to get onto that track
No, obviously.
because, look, let's not talk about who's back and who and why it is. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
so, but the point is, I do really appreciate that you came on there with me because I needed somebody to make me sound intelligent. So there we
you
go.
don't need anybody for that, Chuck.
Oh yeah, I did. But the thing is, that was really enjoyable, and I'm really glad that we got to do that. So, and yeah, hopefully we'll be able to someday be able to examine some of these things that are just fascinations for us that are relevant. But unfortunately, like we said, the world around us is so.
They don't suffer the immediacy that
Yeah.
other topics do.
Well, when you're under siege.
Yeah, okay.
Painting a portrait is a valid and wonderful contribution to humanity. If you paint a unique portrait, if you paint an interesting portrait, if you've added in any way to the beauty or the ugliness, or at least something that makes a statement in the world, right? If you're any kind of artist.
Yes.
But the thing is, if you're in a foxhole and you're surrounded, you're not whipping out your easel and your brushes.
Just drawing stick figures at that point.
Yeah, right. And for a purpose. And this is really what it is that we occupy ourselves with mostly because it's what's got to be done, isn't it?
Yes.
So,
and it's becoming more and more relevant, more and more necessary, more and more, I don't know. The extremities of all of the tyrannies right now are reaching their peak. It is the epitome of tyranny against humanity. And I would say we're probably standing on the crest of the wave right now. I'm looking down for the first time, I believe, in a very, very long time. For the last couple of years, I've been looking up at the summit, hoping to reach it. At this point, I believe we're actually on the summit. I do believe that there is a rapidly increasing number of people waking up across the planet. I do believe that we see those who propagate and perpetuate the ideas and ideals of the New World Order are getting frantic. They also see that a lot of the planet is waking up. You hear about it. I listen to a lot of media from different countries because we have a lot of media in different countries. And I listen to what they say and I look at what they write, and they're all talking about the increasing amount of individuals across the planet who are waking up to multiple levels and multiple classifications of tyranny. So I believe we're actually, if not exactly on the crest, we're damn close to the crest of this wave here. And from this point on, what we need to do is we need to facilitate our control. Mm-hmm. We need to take the control because up until this point, we have been controlled in such a fashion that we have seen society go from, as you've heard me say many times, in the last 60 years alone, from the most enlightened and healthy society on the planet, I'm talking about the USA, to the dumbest and the most ignorant and the sickest society on the planet. And I do believe that we have finally reached a point where that is all but, I believe we reached the crest of the wave. That's the best way to put it.
Well, and you know what's strange is that when you start to talk like this, right, a lot of people react thinking that this is just the leftover remnants of one's fixation on what used to be the neocon concept of American exceptionalism. I think it still is one of those things they throw around. I'm really so disconnected from that at this point. I'm not sure what's popular.
And I was a card-carrying, I was like the executive director of the local neocon club at one point. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. you were Fox News's target audience. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Oh yes.
But But it does seem almost like it could be a residual from that, right? Because the concept of American exceptionalism was somewhat overblown in a way. We were kind of propagandized to think that, you know, the Soviets were so far behind us that they were sending dogs into space when we were sending men into space. And I don't want to get into the whole discussion about whether it is we actually went to the moon and all that. Please,
Oh, I'm not going
please.
to. And the thing of it is, they were sending dogs into space when we were sending nothing into space.
Yeah, yeah, that's the reality.
Yeah.
And, before we sent our monkeys up, they had already done all that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But see, the thing is that we were kind of propagandized to believe that they were way behind us on all things. That,
Unless you worked for the military industrial complex, which I did, and we
yep,
were in a technological race against them, and we knew what their capabilities were, and you didn't have hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars being spent on modernizing or developing new weapon systems because the Soviets were throwing rocks.
you got it. You
You
got it.
didn't have it. Okay, I know the reality, and a lot of it I can't even speak of to today. But suffice it to say, we were never in a position of ultimate dominance. It never existed, and it doesn't exist today.
Well, right. And on many fronts, that was true.
Yes.
Each society had its ups and its downs. There was various points where we were running that race. We did seem to maintain supremacy to the best that I can, that I
Overall,
can.
yes, we did. But then you also have to remember that we spend more on the military every year than the next 10 largest militaries on the planet combined.
Well, yeah, and that's
I would
exactly.
hope to God we've got at least a slight edge on them, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, and that's the point. This is why we do.
Yeah.
But at this point, when we're looking at the precipice of the possibility of World War III and everything else, it is considerable, to understand that we're at a different point with the technology now. It's not the same race that we had. We've
No.
spent more than a decade and a half engaged in very costly warfare, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, whether they remind us that we're still in Afghanistan, whether they remind us that, with all of this stage managed nonsense with us coming in and out of Iraq, the truth is we never left.
Nope.
Okay. And that was minimally since
Chuck,
2003.
we are in, some will say as many as 172 nations on this planet with a military presence. There's only 194 nations on this planet. We have a military presence, whether it is covert or overt, in 174 of them. Give me a break. What do you think that costs?
Well, right. And of course, who wins at the end of all of this? Well, the international banking system does.
Absolutely.
Because they charge interest on every single one of these wonderful expenditures that's made. And it doesn't matter whether it's in the public sector, the private sector, etc. It's all money. It's all being,
Well, let's take it one step further. We are the big stick that Teddy Roosevelt used to talk about. Talk softly, but carry a big stick. We are the big stick, and it is not wielded by the American government. Anybody who believes that is an idiot. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you just haven't got your eyes open. That stick is being wielded by these international banksters, these money changers, these people who control the purse strings of just about every nation on the planet. The United States is the military stick. Let's go back to the nation states, cities again. Let's go back to the Vatican, which is the center of religion on the planet. Let's go to to London, which is the focal point of finances on the planet. Let's go to Washington D.C., which is the military capital of the world. Our intent and purpose is to be the big stick for these elitists to beat anybody about the head and shoulders who will not give them exactly what they tell them they want.
Mm-hmm. No, that's exactly what's going on. On the grand chessboard, we are probably the queen piece. I mean, that's the way it goes.
We are.
And
That's a great analogy. Yes, sir.
but here's the thing, it's all still a game, and we're not the owners. We're not the ones who actually own the board. We're not the ones who actually own the pieces.
Nope.
Not even close. And meanwhile, the hands that actually manipulate this, well, that's our wonderful friends we refer to all the time as the elites. And
Yeah, well, when you use the word friends, you and I are going to part company slightly on that. Okay.
yeah,
But
well,
let me get through this.
mocking term.
This is not a long primer here, a long article. As a matter of fact, when I wrote this article was written about 3 months before we ever launched our very first website, of which we have 17 now globally. This article was written, and when I wrote it, I just splashed it all over a bunch of groups and stuff on social media. It never made a website. But it is just as applicable today as it was then. Sure, I might have added a few lines because of a few things that might have happened between then and now, but it's exactly the same thing. But it did lead to another article that I wrote, which the link is at the very bottom of this one. And that article that this led to is called The Truth of Tyranny, What We Have Already Lost. Now, you're going to understand how this morphed into that article after we go through the article. But just let me know when you'd like me to fire up here, Chuck.
Oh, absolutely. I just felt as though we should have this discussion, that's all. And
Yeah.
sorry about, not getting that one clip to you. I wanted to get that clip to you earlier. Maybe we'll talk about it next week as it continues
I've
to
got my
resonate.
things to say about that. You know, this might be the very first time you will actually hear me say something in support of Obama.
Wow.
But not right now, because
Ooh.
that will take up all the rest of this show, I promise.
Yeah, well, stay tuned for that one because we might have to.
Well,
we
that
might
doesn't
have
mean
to,
I like the guy and I support. I don't support him, but at the same time, there's a time to take somebody to task, and there's a time not to take somebody to task. Okay.
Oh, I know it. I know.
I do think that was overblown beyond anything you can believe, and that's exactly what the neocons do. But anyway, I really want to get what I've brought to the show today out.
Oh, absolutely, of course. Go ahead.
All right. Well, the name of the article is The Illusion of Liberty in America. And we all know, because I tell you all often enough, I make up memes, which are just basically picture boards with words on them. So the header picture for this article or this commentary is a meme. And on the meme are the following words. When government must lie to its people to maintain its hold on power, then it is the people it fears. When the people know government is lying to maintain its hold on power, then it is this government it fears. When these two concepts exist simultaneously, revolution in some fashion is most likely inevitable. Well, that's the meme. So here we go into the article. Okay, over the years, we have watched with semi-interest and disdain as the governments of one country after another choked off the rights and liberties of its people to obtain absolute power by deception, force, or both. All of the while, in this country, we are smug in our belief that this is America and that this can't possibly happen here. Please let me list a few facts about our government and then ask yourself this question again. Okay? As of the last few years, our government, Congress, and our president have passed laws or executive orders giving themselves the power and authority to do the following. And remember, this is by far not a complete list. Restrict our right to demonstrate against any government facility or official, government or not, accompanied by Secret Service, or basically our right to assemble as defined by them. Restrict our rights to unreasonable search and seizure as long as the law enforcement can show reasonable ignorance of the law. Yes, I really said that. That's a Supreme Court decision that took your Fourth Amendment right away. When the police pull you over and because for a false reason and search your car and find a little bit of marijuana and take you to jail for it, you can no longer claim the Fourth Amendment because the Supreme Court has stated as long as the police were ignorant, truly ignorant of the law, which is their job, then whatever they find in that search can be held against you. So again, now your Fourth Amendment out the door. Restrict our rights to speak out against the government, including designated free speech zones. Hold on a minute here. Where do you see that in the Constitution? Okay? Where do you see, yep, you got free speech, but you got to go inside this corral or this box in order to exercise it? My friends, if you can explain to me how that's free speech, I will kiss your butt on Broadway at high noon and I'll let you sell tickets to the event. Okay? All right. So if you stop and consider that they've got free speech zones now. Congress is even now working on a bill to criminalize investigative reporting that exposes the crimes of the government. Okay, so tell me again how you've got free speech. Restrict our rights to practice openly religion of our choice, freedom of religion. Instituted indefinite detention without due process. Instituted assassination without due process. The power to declare martial law at will. Okay. Now let's just stop and think about that second. And force citizens into unpaid labor. I have to explain something to you. When you force anybody into labor, uncompensated, there's only one word that explains that. That's slavery. Period. The power to control and shut down all internal communications, including that which is privately owned. The power to spy and collect data on all citizens without our knowledge. Our right to reasonable privacy is also gone. The power to conduct warrantless searches or the authority to write their own warrant without just cause. Okay? The construction of hundreds of FEMA internment camps strategically placed around the country, each ringed with razor wire pointed in, not out, which means they're trying to keep somebody in, not keep somebody from getting in, and equipped with cage personnel carriers for transporting occupants. Anybody who says these don't exist, you're an idiot. I can show you the government directive under which they were built. Okay? This has been out in the public for 8 years, and there's still people saying they don't exist. The hiring of thousands of TSA and Homeland Security agents from the dregs and thugs of this country, stormtroopers. The purchase of a huge number of war-proven assault rifles, AMRAP vehicles, and well over 2 billion rounds of ammunition, enough to fight the entire war we've been involved in every country in the Middle East for 10 to 15 years straight. That's how much ammunition we're talking about, including a large quantity of 40 caliber hollow point, meant only to kill bullets for use by these internal government forces. They're not for use against external. They're not for use in Iraq. They're not for use in Afghanistan. They're meant for use within the United States. What are you going to use 2.2 billion bullets against? The only thing they can use it against is you and me, my friends. The use of drones in our skies. Can you remember about 4 or 5 years ago when they were saying, you know, we're only going to use these against our enemies. You're never going to see them in U.S. skies. Now they're telling us within the next 4 to 5 years it's going to be as many as 30,000 drones in U.S. airspace, okay? But let's take that a little further. Drones in the sky, street lights that have cameras in them, stoplights that have surveillance cameras in them, smart appliances, smartphones, cable boxes, etc., to watch and track every single move we make. Your right to reasonable privacy? Are you freaking kidding me? The use of social media to collect facts and personal information on hundreds of millions of Americans without the permission and knowledge. Now we come to another meme. Again, at this point, I was very frustrated. I made up a picture, and that picture reads, As a boy, I took great pride in boasting America as the freest country, the richest country, and this was 60 years ago, the best educated country, the most productive country. But I have personally watched America fall in the last 3 generations, so why? The architects of global governance have clearly stated the New World Order cannot exist if America isn't first knocked to her knees. Mission almost accomplished. Wake up and be heard. Now we'll finish this article real quick here. So, are there really any among you, even the most ardent sheep, who believe that all of the above stated is in any fashion normal, benevolent, or in our best interest? Because if you do, I have one comment. Really? Now, let's go back to the first paragraph and realize that someday, real soon, somebody in Sweden or Turkey or Australia will be watching their TV with semi-interest and disdain and observing as the government of this country chokes off the rights and liberties of its people to attain absolute power by deception, force, or both. If you remember, that's the exact paragraph I used to open this article. And what and you're doing what? Wake up or don't complain, because this is, through our complacency and apathy, what we the people have allowed to happen. This was a constitutional republic. Liberty in this land of liberty today is an ever-expanding illusion.
Mm-hmm.
As this illusion grows stronger, our ability to push back fades in a proportional fashion. We, the people, are now approaching the point of no return. When this government no longer serves the will and needs of the people, it is the duty of we the people to remove that government and replace it with one that will serve us. The struggle for liberty may cost you a lot, but here's the kicker. Doing nothing will cost you everything. And you say? Now, I did finish that off with a little blurb explaining to everybody and putting the link to the article I wrote after this that lists all of the laws and the executive orders that took all that rights away. So for anybody saying, you can say we don't have that right, you can say they made this law, but where's your proof? Click on the link at the bottom. Every one of the laws, every one of the rights and the freedoms we have lost is listed with a direct link to that law or that executive order in the article called The Truth of Tyranny, What We Have Already Lost. Now, I finished this off with what I tastefully called, because I never make fun of religion. I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person, but I don't make fun of religion. And I made a last meme up to put at the very bottom of this, and I called it the activist prayer. And this is my version of the activist prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I can only hope my message was good enough to soldier on long after I have been forgotten. Amen.
And isn't that something? Look, at the bottom of the article, you got a link there discussing one of these things, and I want to capitalize on this point, okay? Because this is something I don't think people realize. It has already been written about this concept of, oh boy, the unpaid labor, okay?
Yes. And but the scariest part of this, Chuck, and I apologize for cutting you off, but the scariest part of all of this is that via the executive order, and the executive order is listed in the article, that the link that's at the bottom, what we've already lost, via his executive order, he can force us into labor, unpaid labor or slavery, in times of national emergency or not. There does not have to be a national emergency. There does not have to be martial law. He can do it by presidential decree. It's written right into that executive order. It says in both times of national emergency or not.
Right? No,
Tell me that's not tyranny.
Well, that's exactly the point. Is what that translates to, ladies and gentlemen, is because you filed your taxes, because you're in the system. They know exactly what your skill level is based on your job history, exactly how consistent you are, et cetera, at doing any particular job, whether it be construction, whether it be human resource management, whether it be anything, okay, technological, whether it's labor intensive, it really doesn't matter. Here's what happens. You can be called upon based on your history in order to do this this unpaid labor. For what?
Well,
for whatever it is that he deems necessary based on nothing. Because the national emergency could be in place, there could be no national emergency, but even if there was, unpaid labor is still a really pleasant way of saying you can be taken and put into slavery.
They can put you in an iron ore field. They can put you in a coal mine. They can put you out in the fields picking cotton. They can put you anywhere they want. He has within his right via that most unconstitutional executive order the right to take over all food production, all food storage and distribution facilities, all communication, any means of travel within the country, all labor, and all medical facilities. In other words, he has the ability to claim total dictatorial powers. And again, you need to read this EO because you're going to think I'm absolutely bullcrapping you on what I'm about to say, in either times of national emergency or not.
Right. This is exactly the point. Is that essentially that right there is just, I can declare myself a dictator over all the people of the United States at any point in time.
That's
that's all that says. That's the real short version of what that says.
That's exactly, and I can take over anything and everything that you need. I tell you right now, I'm going to give you a short scenario. Anybody who doesn't believe this needs to read an article that Dave Hodges did some research on and wrote, okay? When you have a president who can take over all food production, all food storage, all means of growing food, all equipment in the utilization of growing food and storing food or transporting food. You control food. Now all of a sudden he's taken over this entire mechanism. He's not going to have to beat on your door and drag you out of your house and throw you into a coal mine. What he's going to say to you is, you need to volunteer to go into that coal mine because that's the only way. You're not going to get paid for it, but we're going to give you food to feed you and your family. Okay, now the influence over you is no longer that the government has forced you into slavery. What they have told you is, you're not going to get paid for this, but if you put in 40 hours or 60 or 100 hours a week of labor, we'll give you enough food to sustain you and your family. And we're the only people, by the way, who have control over the total food supply in this country. So you either work for us or you starve to death.
Right, and plus, hey, if you can figure out a way to get your own food, well, maybe you can't figure out a way to get your own method of conveyance. If you can't figure out a way to do that, maybe you have trouble getting the medicine you require. All of these facilities
all of them. Yep. And if you also stop and think, municipality after municipality across this country is making it harder and harder for you to even grow a garden. You cannot collect water that runs off, in a lot of places, that runs off your roof into a bucket. That's illegal. You can go to jail for collecting rainwater. You can't grow foods in your yard that you paid for. You own that property. But if you try and grow a garden in anywhere but a specific area within your yard, you can go to jail for it, or they can come and destroy your garden. So again, what you're seeing is medication. Okay, same thing. They're making homeopathic medications, herbs, and naturopathic food we know keep us healthy. They're making them illegal. All right? You won't be able
Yep.
to buy them in another year or two because it would compete with Big Pharma and exactly what Chuck just told you. If you can take care of your health by eating healthy, taking these herbs, taking these natural vitamins, then you don't need the government. So the government can't hold a lever over you with their medication. If you can grow your own food, the government can't hold food over you as a lever. If you can, and we can go right down the list. So more and more what we're seeing is our abilities to take care of ourselves are being taken over by the government so that they don't have one lever against us. And again, as you so eloquently put it, Chuck, if this lever doesn't work, we got this lever. And if that lever doesn't work, guess what? We got this lever. Right?
Exactly. And it's not like you're going to be able to hide, because with the unfettered access via DHS to everything from public and private security assets, okay, even your convenience stores, you go into gee, I don't know what they got around the country, but I mean, let's just think 7-Eleven stores or whatever. Even if you
Piggly
walk in there,
Wiggly's my favorite because that name always makes me chuckle.
I got
Piggly
Piggly
Wiggly's.
I got Piggly Wigglies near me. But if you go into your Piggly Wiggly, if you go into your I don't know, ShopRite, whatever they have, just imagine any sort of a retail
7-Eleven. Yeah.
establishment anywhere. There's always security cameras. All of those things are accessible at all times by DHS. So guess what? There's no way to hide anything you're purchasing. There's no way to hide anything you possess. You're on camera almost at all times. Your streetlights keep track of you. Your appliances at home know what you're doing. And even if they didn't, there's plenty of drones for surveillance. No matter what, if you sign on to anything electronically, it's known. You have a traceable path by which you have conducted business, by which you have communicated with people, etc., etc. We all know that the entire telecommunications system has been, since the 90s, completely under full surveillance. Yes. So guess what? I mean, and Google Earth, Google Earth basically.
It goes even deeper than that because there are microchips that can be injected into the body via the mechanism of vaccines. These exist, okay? This is not science fiction. They actually exist, okay? So we are constantly being pushed and pushed and pushed to be vaccinated, and they're making vaccine laws mandatory, or they're trying to desperately in so many states across the country, and pretty soon that's going to become a federal issue about making vaccines mandatory. That's another whole bag of worms. That's another show we're going to do, Chuck, and believe me, when I do that show with you, I will be totally unfettered. You'll have to put me on a leash with that show.
Well,
but if you stop and think about that, that's one issue. But you also have to stop and think about in the 2010 census, okay, every single front door, your front door tagged to your name, not once but twice, was GPSed. Every single private residence in this country was GPS with a name to go along with it, or every name that resides within that within that domicile. And so and not all of those addresses are going to be up to date or current at this point. But the point here is it's very, very easy, as Chuck said, for them to go into the system and say, okay, in the 2010 census, he lived here. Do we have a change of address? No, we don't. Do we have any bills going to that address? Yeah, in his name? Yes, we do. Okay, we got 30,000 drones in the sky. All right, put him on the suspected terrorist list. Okay, fire, boom, you're gone. And I'm not even talking about a missile. Okay? And anybody, again, who thinks that I'm full of crap needs to do a little bit of research. I'm talking about pulsed electromagnetic waves. I'm talking about knocking your butt to the ground without any physical damage to your domicile whatsoever. They know where you live. They know how you live. They know why you live and what you live for. And if you think they can't reach you without putting a hole through your roof, you're absolutely wrong.
Yeah, there's basically mechanisms that I would describe as a wireless taser. Works just
Yes.
fine.
Yep.
And these things exist. These aren't the fevered dreams of a conspiracy theorist, okay?
No.
Just like resisting arrest when you haven't committed a crime is still something that you have to deal with as a charge, even after you've already adjudicated your case and been found innocent. You can still be found guilty of resisting arrest, despite the fact that you haven't committed a crime. And, the idea is, how do you resist arrest if you, well, gee, shouldn't that nullify itself? No, it doesn't.
Wait
That
a
still
minute.
goes on. Due process is gone. Hold on just a sec, because I know I'm going to give you some more, and you're going to.
Oh, yeah.
The concept of free speech zones, everybody thinks this is a joke, and that was just something that went on during, the presidential
Bundy
selection process,
and
right?
Bundy Ranch, too.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, the Bundy Ranch, right. But everywhere, that whole concept, I was under this bizarre impression in my mind that the free speech zone was actually anything that was the soil of the United States of America. I don't know. I must be one of those crazy conspiracy theorists, right? Okay.
Well, the big one that gets me, okay? The one when people push back, when you tell them we live in a police state, which we actually do, because we all know that Princeton has already stated the United States is an oligarchy. It's no longer run by democratic process. Well, who runs an oligarchy? Who keeps the machine functioning for an oligarchy? It is the police mechanism they have put in place. We are, by definition in this country, a police state. But if you needed any further proof, when the Supreme Court had this case in front of them of this car being pulled over by the police because it had a tail light that wasn't working, and they searched the car under that premise, okay? And they found some pot, some marijuana in the car, and that led to a bunch of charges, so on and so forth. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and what the Supreme Court said was, because what they found out was, in the state this happened, it is not an offense that requires, or it's not illegal to drive with one taillight, one brake light on the back end of your car. It's illegal to drive with none, but it's not illegal to have one out. So the cop didn't know that, didn't pull him over for the right reason. Well, the Supreme Court ruling stated, as long as the police are justifiably or there's a reason to explain their ignorance of the law, then anything they find within the search they've done illegally you can still be prosecuted for. So what this sets up here, stop and think about this, and anybody who thinks I'm wrong, you're wrong. What the Supreme Court told the police was, if you can show us you were reasonably ignorant of the law, then you can still arrest these people for things you found through your ignorance of the law. Now, we're talking about a mechanism of our government, the police, which is set up to enforce the law. Yet, they can arrest you for things that they don't know about because they're ignorant of the law. And the Supreme Court upheld this. So what they told the police was, anytime that these people take you to court because of an infraction against the law, which will allow them to get off the hook, all you got to do is say, well, we really didn't know that when we did it. We're claiming ignorance of the law. So the mechanism that is there to enforce the law can get away with it if they could show they were ignorant of the law they were enforcing. Where the hell is... How does this work, Chuck?
Well,
how does this work?
Listen, it's called, and I apologize, but it's called ass backwards, okay?
Yes!
Here's what the thing is, and I used to get in trouble when I was younger. So I understand.
No, you say it isn't so, Chuck. Come on.
I understand legal procedure a little bit, or at least what was legal procedure when it came to these kinds of things. You know what the term was for actually initiating a search and going through and finding evidence by way of a search which had no justification? What was that?
Probable cause.
Well, probable cause.
You gotta have probable cause.
That was the standard by which a legal search could be initiated. And, you know, we've all seen the video of, you know, individuals that are working for the Department of Justice who don't even understand what probable cause is or that it actually has something to do. No, it has to be reasonable. No. It has to be by probable cause, and there are specific ways by which probable cause can be established. What the term would be if a police officer initiated a search, okay, based on something that turned out to be incorrect in their assumptions, okay, they used to say that that was like fruit of the poison tree. That's one thing.
What it is illegal search and seizure.
It's true, but
until
the evidence,
the Court just popped that bubble.
But that's the problem. The evidence that would be seized by a search, which was not in compliance with
the legal fashion, yes,
in compliance with the Fourth Amendment, your basic constitutional rights. Any evidence gathered in that search would be thrown out. Could not be entered into evidence against you in a court of law.
Via the ignorance of the law enforcement officers or not.
Exactly. If you, as a defendant, could prove that this was unreasonable, that the police had no right to search you, the evidence they gathered, gone. Gone.
That went up in smoke.
That went up in smoke. And here's the funny thing. There's also a statutory concern whereby, okay, and this sounds a little complicated, but it's really not, whereby actually ignorance of the law was a defense that could be used during the sentencing phase, okay, in a court, where you could explain that you wish to have leniency, that you wish to avoid maximum penalty, because you had no idea you were breaking the law.
But that was you as the defendant. That wasn't something in the arsenal of the individual whose job it is to know the law they're enforcing.
Did you hear me say ass backwards? I think you did.
Oh, I sure did.
That's
and I loved
what I'm
it.
Saying. That's what I'm saying. Where at which point did our rights become the state's rights? It's not the same thing. The state does not share the same rights. The corporation is not supposed to have the rights of the individual. It's not supposed to work this way, which is another issue I know.
The state has no rights at all. They have edicts. They have no rights. A state is not an individual, so it can, by default, the state cannot have rights.
Exactly. Thank you. You're making my points as I'm explaining this.
Which I'm doing intentionally.
Good. Good. Because, you know, when people say, no, you're being extreme about these things, you are seeing conspiracies, you're seeing changes in America where nothing has changed. No. In my lifetime, I know for a fact that this was the way business was done in a court. Okay? I know this. I saw it. I experienced it. Bet there's some other people out there listening to us right now that know what I'm talking about. Try it now. It doesn't work the same way. And for those that push back against use of terms like things, you know, like police state or militarized, mechanized, absolutely out of control law enforcement that does not observe the legal precedents that they are alleged to be enforcing, etc., etc. This is out of control. And it's not just the cops on the street. It's not just your local municipal courts. It's everywhere. Now,
well, if you guys, anybody listening, okay, again, again, we put out a lot of information here, but I'm a type of person where, and you've all heard me say this, I don't challenge you to prove me wrong. I dare you to prove me wrong. So everything I said, again, go to an article called The Truth of Tyranny, What We Have Already Lost. And in there, I am going to hand you via active links, okay, proof that the United States is no longer a Democrat ruled under a democratic process. It is ruled under an oligarchy. We have no democracy. I'm going to hand you proof that the United States no longer has an active Bill of Rights. We the unreasonable search and seizure is gone. Proof that any warrant that these guys can write their own warrants for anything that they feel necessary. Again, proof that probable cause is gone. Proof that the right to assemble is gone. That's H.R. 347, by the way.
Yep.
Proof that the freedom of speech has gone also through H.R. 47. Proof that impunity from congressional checks and balances, which is the president's ability to put individuals into high-ranking offices without the approval of Congress anymore, which is S-679. The NDAA bill, which took away, which gave indefinite detention, Section 1032/1021. I can go on. National Defense Resources Preparedness Act. This is
right.
The constitutional act. I mean, the executive order that Obama wrote that took gave him total dictatorial powers. This is Executive Order 13603, or the National Defense Resources Preparedness Act. And, I could go on, but please visit that article, because everything I've told you will be put right in front of your face in the law and the executive order that it applies directly to. We don't say anything to scare you. We say everything to wake you up. Nothing that Chuck and I have said today is even the slightest bit of exaggeration. If you think you live in a country where liberty is the mainstay, you're an idiot. Liberty is an illusion in America today unless we step up and take ourselves back. Got to get back into that Wayback Machine, Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine. And we've got to go back to the days where we were the true governors of this country. Because if you sincerely think you live in the country today which exercises the most liberty on this planet, you're an idiot.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely on point, as always. I'm going to draw one quick thing here. It's going to take us 2 minutes to go through, and I know you'll slice straight through it. But here's the thing, because people say to me sometimes, this whole worry about your privacy. Okay, we're going to put it in context with this whole legal thing.
Well, if I'm not doing anything wrong, why should I worry?
Well, that's usually the response I
want to hit everybody who says that.
You know what? You and me both. I am so sick of hearing, if I'm not doing anything wrong, why do I care? Well, let me explain something to you.
Who defines what's right and wrong?
Well, please, you want to get into a deep philosophical thing? No.
No. That's why I said, go ahead, Chuck.
Remember this, okay? Remember, probable cause would be established, right, via things which were publicly accessible or by a sworn affidavit, okay? That is how probable cause used to have to be established. You notice how I'm saying used to? Okay. Yeah. That is literally, read the Fourth Amendment, please. Okay, please do that, and then explain to me how it is there is not unfettered access by anybody who seeks to prosecute you. They don't even need to know the law. They don't even need to go through the procedure of gathering evidence against you. And again, well, if I'm doing nothing wrong, how do you even know what you...
And if they have a mucked up warrant, which you can poke holes in, now all they have to do to say to the judge is, I'm sorry, Judge, but I really didn't know. I'm going to have to claim ignorance here. And the judge goes, okay, everything that was seized during that, what should have been termed an illegal raid, is acceptable in court. Thank you, Supreme Court. You've just taken another one of our rights and thrown it down the crapshoot of life. And that's a fact. The Fourth Amendment is dead.
But that's it. Every last one of those first 10 amendments is under siege.
Or dead.
Or dead. Or dead. Well, you know,
But they still give us the illusion. They still give us the illusion.
The illusion, exactly where I was going. There. The illusion.
And they teach our second grade children, and there's an article I published proving this. It shows the actual homework the child took home and the parent got irate. Our social studies book and our American government books teach our second grade on up children that rights are privileges given to us by our government. That's a pile of crap. But that's what our government now teaches our children. Be good, or we'll take those privileges we gave you away.
Yeah. There you go. So the big stick is out there for the rest of the world. But there's a stick hanging over us as well. And you know what? It could very easily be turned into the very same stick. Okay.
It probably is. You know, I would say that, you know, it's the same stick. It's just we're not getting beat as hard as other people are yet. But the intensity and the rapidity of the smacks we're getting from that stick is increasing.
You said it. You said it.
All right. Well, I don't want to bother you much more here. I've got to run. But as usual, I come on this show all calm and ready to have a discussion, and when I leave, my heart is beating at twice the normal rate. I'm sweating bullets, and I've already spit all over from hollering. I've already spit all over my monitor at least a dozen times. But that's a normal show with you, Chuck.
Well, listen, I'm happy to be of service. And you know what? I'm still going to keep a good sense of humor about this, because no matter how deep down the rabbit hole this entire nation has gone, I still have this insane idea that we may be able to push away from the precipice.
I agree. And I like I said, I believe we're just about at the crest of this wave. We can see down the other side. I truly believe that there is a groundswell of individuals waking up across this planet, and we outnumber them so dramatically, it's insane. This is what they're worried about the most. Their ability to keep us divided, ignorant, and divisive is fading.
Absolutely, sir. And I hope that we get to that, mechanism of division next week, because
sure.
I think you and I will have a real heated discussion there. And we may come at it from slightly different angles as per usual, but what will happen is we're going to wind up walking the same path. Yep. And hopefully giving people something else to consider. But remember, this is definitely not the nation that they taught me about when I was a child. It's certainly not the nation that it was when you were a child. No. And with any luck, we'll be able to restore one thing at the very least. I can't say that we'll be able to fix everything or that we'll be able to recover it as it was, but it would be very, very nice if we got back to the concept which you so eloquently put out there all the time, that we the people are supposed to be at the top of the political power structure in this country. And if we can at least retain that from this experiment that was formerly known as the United States of America, we have a great chance to become a shining example again.
Yes,
anyway, sir. Roger Landry from the Liberty Beacon, alloneword.com. I thank you, sir, and I appreciate the fact that that you get so worked up, because you know what? Nothing is worth discussing if it doesn't incite some passion. And we got to get to some updates next week too. Stuff on the walk, stuff on new websites, everything else.
Next week would be a great point to talk about the Walking the Kingdom, because I believe he will pass his first milestone, which will be about 25% of his walk, or the first 1,000 miles will be behind him.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to get to it next week, because
yep.
I have been checking in on that now and then. And, despite all this other nonsense that's going on. But again, Roger Landry, thank you, sir, for everything that you do. Check it all out at thelibertybeacon.com. Many other websites affiliated with, partnered with The Liberty Beacon, and more to come.
Have a good day, my friend. So long.
You too, sir. Take care. Now, I'm hopefully ready to get JJ on the air. Not sure if he is ready yet. I know he told me he would be around at 7:30. If not, I'll just run my mouth a bit. We shall see if he's around early or not. If he is, who knows? Anyway, let me see something here. I love it when the Skype acts strange. Anyway, JJink, of course, is the host of Against the Wall here on UCY.TV. Interesting guy, a little different than myself. The first guy that I actually came on the air with here on UCY, actually the first time I was on the air and did a show here was pretty funny. I was subbing for JJ before I even did my own show. I think it was, I got to think back, Valentine's Day of 2014, I think, was the first time I came on UCY. And it was on JJ's show, trying to sub for him. I had articles. He had passed me some stuff he wanted me to cover and everything else. And everything from my Kindle to my laptop took a crap on me, and I sat and rambled on his show. And did one of the most disastrous things that I think I've ever done. So, that's fun. I might have to post that somewhere soon, just to laugh at myself a bit. Oh, boy. Anyway, let's see. Come on, Skype. Don't know. There we go. Anyway, I got to tell you, though, it is really fascinating for me, not only all the stuff that we discussed with Roger, because we are marking a very serious change in demeanor as far as the legal system goes in this country, but it's not simply just the legal system. Socially, it's becoming more and more acceptable to lay down and stick your bellies up like dogs. This is one of the things that is commonplace now. People expect that they're supposed to submit to police officers. People expect that they're supposed to submit to the government agencies. People expect that, despite the fact that they're already being completely invaded, regardless of their constitutional rights, in any way, shape, or form, to assume that you have any kind of privacy. People have kind of submitted in a whole lot of different ways, and I can't stand that notion. That, I mean, literally, it gets me gritting what's left of my teeth when I hear people say, if I'm not doing anything wrong, right? If I'm not doing anything wrong, then why would I worry about what they're watching? Why would I worry? Well, again, when you put more things into the public domain and security has more access and so on and so forth. And no, JJ, I'm not quite bombing yet, but give me time. I will do that whenever you're ready, my brother. Thing is, when people are doing that, and they think it's normal, all these things becoming normalized, like I've talked about, the lack of standards, the lack of the public's ability to understand exactly how they've been turned. And I mean, really, I call it the ass jack syndrome as opposed to the jackass syndrome, because it is a backwards facing donkey in my estimation, and it's got nothing to do with the donkey and the elephant. Nope. Paint them both purple. They're both part of the same damn system. And that's all there is to it. Why is it that you can't get a whole lot of people out there to understand that your rights are being stolen from you? That what was your birthright in this country, simply by existing here, not privileges bestowed upon you by the great government mechanism, by the great government corporation. No. Simply by virtue of your birth, okay, you were supposed to have these rights. You were supposed to expect due process based on XYZ. All of these things being eroded. The Fourth Amendment being dead. Well, I don't know if it's dead, but it's certainly been twisted into a suffocating position that Houdini would not dare attempt to escape from. But we need to. We definitely need to. Every one of those first 10 on that Bill of Rights, every single one of them under attack. We didn't even begin to touch upon how journalists and individuals who speak ill of the government are being targeted, are being harassed, etc., etc. I mean, social media, or anti-social media, if you want to be more accurate about it, the fact that that stuff is being utilized in order to track and determine who is actually a terrorist, etc., etc., all that kind of good stuff. Kind of funny, because people that actually do terroristic things, like that moron who decided to shoot up people in South Carolina, you know, it's funny. With all their pre-crime kind of predetermination, they don't seem to catch up to these guys, do they? Nah. But meanwhile, everybody out there, make sure that you're very, very concerned as to whether one of the other MSM liars gets into a different part of the corporation that he is branded with, and he has a job, because, you know, Brian Williams having a job, that's real important. You know, very much like Caitlyn Jenner recently, and all these other wonderful things. And is transracial identity something that is a reality? Is trans, and you might not believe this, but I'm actually seeing stuff, a little bit of noise, and I'll be willing to bet that not too long from now, if it's still getting plenty of hits on the web and it's bringing ratings up, you know, the trans identity movement is going to translate into determination of handicaps, determination of all sorts of things about an individual's identity based on their own personal perception. Because the more that you convolute reality, the more you tell people that reality can't be hijacked because it is a self-determined individual thing, the more that is an absolute in our society, the stranger this is going to become. I mean, if you feel too weak to work, are you then, by extension, too weak to work and then deserving of, disability benefits? Does that make sense? If I decide that I'm a Native American, should I fill out my paperwork for whatever it is I choose to go out there and say, well, I feel as though I racially identify as a Native American, what we used to call Indians when we were kids? If I feel that way, should I be able to do that as well? Does that make sense? If I wake up on any given day and decide that my gender is a shifting, non-quantitatable thing, is that something that needs to be taken into account? And does that mean that I don't have to observe which sign I decide to utilize when I go to use a public restroom? Nobody can give me trouble for using the ladies' room because I gender identify with women. Okay. It's a thing of beauty, isn't it? But let's talk about all of that, because while they continue to maneuver the vast military-industrial complex all across Europe, while all those assets are being moved into place, you know, the pawns do have to establish the perimeter a lot of times, depending on your strategy in the chess game. While they're doing that, while they're preparing the mechanisms by which a whole lot of other individuals who thought they were doing a good thing by attempting to serve their country are going to be sacrificed, and a whole lot more of the nation's wealth will be, well, the alleged wealth, after all, it is all an imaginary concept. See, this is a confusing thing when you think about it, because do you actually think that this is nothing more than just a great shuffling and redealing, redistribution of wealth, etc., but not for all of us, because wealth and possession and things like that for the individual are truly an illusion, but the eternal corporate entities, they can, after all, outlive us and metamorphosize into new entities as they see fit. Does get kind of confusing, huh? Well, anyway, speaking of confusing stuff, did I even touch upon the Obama thing? You know, briefly I did. I find it funny. I really do find it funny that that Obama utilizing the racial epithet that people would get pretty angry at me for spitting out in a particular public arena. That whole deal going on the Mark Maron WTF podcast, that seems like the perfect venue. Sit there and talk to a neurotic comedian, about this stage-managed divide and conquer strategy, which is resonating throughout the society. That makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. Anyway, whenever, not sure exactly. I know JJ said he would be around, because I'm getting asked on the Skype. JJ said he would be around 7:30. He might be a little early. I don't know. But either way, I'm very sure that he'll have something to say if I throw a couple of things at him. And once again, definitely enjoy JJ. He's one of the guys that I actually do enjoy here on this network as well, Against the Wall. I just love the title of his show anyway, and his attitude. I don't necessarily agree with him all the time. Not at all. But anyway, back to the reality of what was formerly known as the United States of America, you know. It is fascinating to me that during this time they want to argue about flags and what is appropriate for the inappropriate alleged leader of a country who is nothing more than a meat puppet on a stick, you know, who is absolutely, yet again, and I'll tell you something fascinating too, is that as much as, you know, Putin is a creature of the intelligence community and Obama is a creature of the intelligence community, there is a huge difference between being a construct that doesn't have any teeth and really actually being somebody who's a mover and shaker in that community. I take a guy like Putin a lot more seriously than I do the alleged POTUS here. That's for certain. And people throughout the planet seem to share my sentiment regarding this. So the fact that he's being a buffoon and making sure to make a striking statement in this atmosphere, if you think this was some sort of off-the-cuff, you know, unchoreographed statement that was meant not to resonate out there, you lost your mind. A lot of this stuff is being dictated to the general public, to everybody, really, to make sure that you get up in arms about the use of one particular word or another, to make sure that you get up in arms about the imagery, okay, about the imagery of a flag, the alleged history of that flag, the alleged symbolism of that flag, the alleged nature. And really, this is the dying gasp. This is the death knell screech of being able to utilize this divide and conquer strategy, because the fact is, these generations that are coming up, they're pretty screwed up. They're pretty disconnected. But, you know, it doesn't mean that they didn't make some progress. They don't have the same type of concerns with racism and abiding by norms that subdivide human beings in the same fashion that we did a generation or two ago. They don't have these impolite conversations the same way about the same topics. I mean, all sort of concept of division and standard has been abandoned. In some ways, this has been a positive. See, in some ways, it's been a positive, because abandoning the idea of being relegated to an understanding about particular groups of people Well, that's a great manipulation to once again keep us fighting amongst ourselves as opposed to fighting the actual people that are influencing the damage being done to us on a daily basis. That is one of those things that I cannot seem to get across to some of my listeners, is that in a lot of cases, the information which has been given to you regarding lots of individuals, okay, regarding lots of, well, let's see now, schools of thought out there, okay, the positioning of certain individuals to be vilified. There are convenient targets that have been put into place to make sure that you don't pay attention, that you never pay attention, that you never even bother to question things like the international banking system. How about that? Don't question the way that your money's valued. Don't question the way that all things are valued based on this imaginary yardstick. No, don't question any of that. And make sure that you accept all of the tainted history. Even the history that you lived through when they give you a new interpretation of it. And believe me, I'm somebody who's all for revisionist history. But it is nice to have something to base it on. Facts and evidence are kind of useful. Okay? And vilifying groups of people and pitting them up against one another are definitely rather convenient mechanisms for making sure, once again, that you stay fighting with each other, as opposed to turning your psychological weapons against the real target. So let's see now if my technology will cooperate with me. Oh, JJ.
Hello, Charles.
There we are.
Of the Ochelli Effect.
Hey, man. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. Hold, let me tighten something up here. My boom stand here. Okay. We're in business.
That's funny. I had to put a rubber band around part of mine just before I went to air because they get a little loose.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about taking one of the springs off because it's my... I can't get it. Yeah, I'm not going to do it right now.
That's all right.
2 springs that's pulling, and the connection, the nut that you turn to tighten it up it's not tightening no more.
I think you and I got our boom stands from the same place.
I got Doug Owen. He sent it to me for free, just because I asked.
Nice. Well, I didn't pay too much for mine. Somebody pointed me to a cheaper one. So, but hey, they do wear out after a while.
They do, and plus, I don't have a boom mic or a shock mount or anything like that. I just have a regular mic stuck on the end of it, so it's a lot lighter than it's meant to. It's a real heavy duty boom stand.
Yeah, you know what? That might be the problem with mine too. But I'm sure this is real fascinating radio for everybody.
Yeah. Sorry, folks. Right.
I don't care, man. It's all right. It's a pleasure. We could talk about butterflies, brother. It wouldn't matter to me. I love talking to you, and I'm glad that you're back doing live shows again. I'll tell you that much.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I need a voice. I need a voice every once in a while. That's going to sound a little more pissed off than I do, even when you're calm.
Me. Yeah, that's me for sure.
That's definitely you. I always try to be level.
Well, I guess it's kind of probably because I went a year. I don't know how to explain it, but when I was doing shows all the time, it consumes all your time because it takes a couple of, Now, just doing an hour, I mean, it's more like visiting with friends for me now, so it's actually kind of cash, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's a quick run. That's the other thing, because that hour just disappears.
No pressure.
No pressure, exactly. I mean, and I've been doing this 3 days a week thing for a little bit. And
that's not bad. That's what I started out doing, and I will here pretty soon add the second hour to my shows.
Nice. Looking forward to that. So anyway,
All right, yeah. Moving right on.
moving right along. You and I went back to back. 1 week to the next over with Jack Blood too on the was it
Oh,
the
yeah, for men's.
Miserable Men's Club? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I am a member. The inaugural, actually, the
That's
inaugural guest of the Bitter Men's Club.
that's right. You were the first in line over there at Radio Free Blood, and then I don't know how it is. I got asked to show up on the next one, but it happens. That was fun. I kind of missed Jack being on here too. He was simulcast over here for a little bit.
Yeah. It just he kept disappearing on us. I mean, we chased him around for a couple of years just to to have his show on our network, but I don't know. Now we got another show on that time slot, so.
Yeah, well, and he bobs and weaves a little bit. It was kind of funny toward the end there. You kind of got stuck because sometimes you don't know if he's serious or not.
Oh,
And,
I took it with a grain of salt. Yeah, he did leave me speechless. I was like, I don't even know how. I don't even know how to respond there, dude. I'm not sure what to say here. I've been listening to your show since you were at GCN, so it's all I know. So, anyways, I think it was all right.
Yeah, that's cool.
So now, anyways, yeah, go ahead, man.
Oh well, what I was going to ask you is your take on this this wonderful piece of distraction that's now floating around, and I guess kind of blew up Twitter for a little while. Is that the new thing now? When it blows up Twitter for a little bit, then it's important.
What are you referring to?
Well,
anything.
Well, anything in general, but I mean the two things that I can think of off the top of my head in recent times are the Caitlyn Jenner deal,
yeah.
and of course now Obama using the N-word on Mark Maron's podcast. You heard about that?
I
right?
did not hear that. President Barack Obama used the word nigger on. Pardon me for saying the word, but
No, it's cool.
it's
Look,
just a word.
it's just a word. That's right. I mean,
It's not against the law yet to say it.
no, not in this country. I think in Canada they got a law.
Saying it as a word, whatever. I'm not going to make excuses. I don't have much guilt for myself.
Well, right, but he says, it's no longer, it's not a matter of whether it's polite to use the word nigger in public or not. Now I just said it too.
Yeah.
But
I don't use that word just because I don't know, it just doesn't sound right when I say it. So
no, it's not a comfortable word for me generally.
And it's something easy for me. Like I could say it, but depending on where you are, realize there could be, there could be risk involved. Is all.
Well, it's just like anything else. You got to own it if you say it.
That's right, man.
And I got no problem with that. That's just the reality of the
world.
world.
Was on a podcast. Barack Obama, President Bronco, was on a podcast.
Oh yeah, okay. I'll bring you up to speed. I don't know if you know who Mark Maron is.
No.
He's a comedian. He's one of these like extremely neurotic kind of comedians, and he's gotten a lot of success actually out of just running a podcast called WTF. Okay, marginal comedian in my estimation, and I consider myself a kind of a connoisseur of stand-ups. Not a really great comedian, but continuously he's had interesting guests on, usually comedians, okay? Different people that are on TV shows, stand-ups, so on and so on. This is usually what he does, but every once in a while he hooks a good political guest, okay?
And he got Bronco, huh?
And he got him. He got Barry on there. So Barry's on there, and he's having this discussion, this serious discussion about, which is the most bizarre thing in the world to me to begin with, is that he's on a podcast.
Right.
Hey, come on my show. I'll talk to you for a little while.
Blows me away.
Yeah,
but
well,
anyways.
I'm thinking of now putting in another request to see if I can get him. Hell with it. Let him come on. What would that be like?
It wouldn't go well if it was on my show.
Yeah, I know.
That wouldn't be nice. I wouldn't. I mean, I'd just ask him some straight up questions, man.
Oh yeah, well, but when you get a guest like that, they give you the script. So
yeah, of course. I'm just kidding.
But that's one of those things, and I've only ever had one guest that gave me one of those scripts, and after I did that, I said never again. That ain't gonna happen. I don't even pre-interview.
JJink type
No,
interview?
No. Actually, it was Richard Gage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Richard Gage. It was like here's the script, and I said, okay. because I thought it was worthwhile. But the more I think about it, and the fact that he got angry at me after the 9/11 anniversary broadcast, because he was supposed to be on there for like 15 minutes, and he got on there for about a minute and then disappeared and said he would be back, and he never came back. And the reason was that he had suddenly found himself on a show where there was speculation about things that he absolutely will not address.
Right.
So I got a little bit of angry static from his office, and that's the end of that. Richard Gage will probably never appear on a show with me again.
Right.
But you know what? Just as well, because I don't want stuff that's stage managed. I do this organically. That's what I do.
Well, I don't mind like going over stuff prior to the show, but I'm certainly not going to have somebody tell me, "Oh no, I won't." No, we won't do this. We won't do that. It's just that's. I mean, yeah, I don't play that. I'm not important enough to have to deal with that. You know what I mean?
Well, but even listen, I don't care how large I'm. If I wind up getting large or not, I'm not going to play that game.
That's it, dude. It's because you know what, Charles, Chuck. It's because it's a fucking industry, truth industry. Just sum it all up, add them all the left wings, the right wings, the militias, everyone. They're all part of the fucking truth industry. All like a fucking barrel of fucking crabs trying to pull each other down, make a buck, step on a hand, not get caught, be cool, be a celebritard, an info whore, an infotainment whore, you name it. I can keep going on with adjectives and verbs and to describe what has become an industry.
Exactly. And then that's the thing. I know I'm not part of it.
People up. No, you're not. What you're doing is trying, because it's the same as any other industry. It feeds on new blood. So, all you guys, shame.
Well, that's the thing.
Shame.
Look, it's a subculture, brother. That's what it is. It's a subculture, and it's seizing upon a subculture for capital gain, just like anything else is. Just like allegedly, outside of the mainstream alternative music that suddenly got, completely corporatized, things like that. It's all part of the same kind of reality, and
I don't care. I'll call it what it is. It's an industry, and it's all about making money, and anyone that says it ain't is really naive.
That's the truth.
Not for everybody. I'm not saying that everybody's I'm saying in general, as a whole, if it's not just to get you on a list or get you, because face it, dude, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. A lot of it's true, and the shit is not a lie that our economy is really, on the verge of collapse. It's really what a lot of people would call the dead cat bounce after, the chink in the armor, which was Lehman Brothers. Mm-hmm. And we didn't even know about it. I mean, if they wouldn't have told anybody if they didn't have to. But here's the deal. So now here goes Greece. Greece is, Greece would be like another Lehman Brothers, really, on the world market, in Europe at least. But the U.S. dollar, how can it keep going? I mean, so it's an industry, but a lot of it's true. A lot of the things that they talk about is true. But, I'll be honest with you, dude. You run into people that don't, some of the people out there don't believe half the stuff they talk about. They don't believe that. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, the guys that turn around, I mean, I cracked up because, when certain people got caught with their pants down buying, gold futures as opposed to actually buying physical gold, even though they're out there pushing physical gold for everybody else. That was kind of funny, right? I mean, you remember that, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. We don't have to name names.
No need.
It's an industry, dude, and it's really, other than a few people, it's just motherfuckers trying to make a buck. Don't give a shit who they fucking stab in the back. They're not going to here's the deal. They're not going to jeopardize their fortune, their reputation on you. Straight up. No. So you can go out there and you can become, and I'm going to have I've got a friend I met through Popeye. And in my opinion, I'm not going to say anything, but, that dude was really steering me in the wrong direction. And I really resent that. But I met this kid, right? And USWGO.
You mean Popeye was steering you in the wrong direction?
Yeah, not Brian. Brian's an autistic kid who was an info warrior, man. He was just a young kid, and so what did he do? Instead of grabbing a bullhorn and going out and being whatever I call them Jehovah Witness truthers, where they go door to door. 9/11 was an inside job, and on to the next. So what Brian did was he compiled enough information on Agenda 21, and at the time it was the what I called the collegiate, the NDAA championship collegiate indefinite detention bill. But it was so what he did, and then what he did was he went door to door in his community down in North Carolina with a petition. He explained, he ran it down. He said, this is what the the National Defense Authorization Act is. This is what indefinite detention means. This is what all this means. And he got enough signatures to get himself in front of the town hall. He went in front of the town hall and gave a presentation on sustainable development, ICLEI, and then the NDAA. And then he not only did he do that, but he exposed a few of his politicians, and then he sent letters to his local newspaper saying, listen, if you won't cover this stuff and tell everybody the other side of all these arguments, I'm going to compete with you. I'm going to start my own news agency, and I'm going to compete with you. And they broke into his house. They found child porn allegedly on his computer. And here's a young autistic kid who's diabetic. They put him in. I mean, they really did a number on this guy. And Alex Jones, none of these guys, were around. Nobody would help this kid. And so that's what you get when you put yourself on the line and you expect support, especially if you're not like with the crowd of, celebritarian info wars out there.
I'm sitting in North Carolina, man.
Yeah, he's in Maiden County.
Okay, well,
you know where Maiden is? I mean, I don't know what county it is.
Actually, I'm not really sure. I'm still lost down here. But
at any rate, they destroyed this poor kid, and he's on probation now. He's not allowed to have a computer. He can't leave his county.
Wow.
And I mean, he did things. He made movies. I actually narrated a bunch of documentaries that this guy made, and he did stuff. He went out there and got in the town hall, and I mean, he exposed some things and got himself in big trouble, and nobody was there to support him. I tried, but I mean, I wasn't even doing a show at the time, so there wasn't. And he had been on. He had been on a long time ago. He was getting sued by Right Haven. They'd stole. They were trying to sue him for copyright. And he fought them and exposed the fact that they were using dirty tactics, that they were going around trying to shut down websites that had alternative views. And that got him on Alex Jones. But when he needed to be not on Alex Jones, but his story exposed so that a lot of people, so that people could have wrote the judge and, or so that he could have had some support from the movement that he was totally committed to. And it was a real letdown for him. He's in, so now he's got 8 years of post supervision from being in jail and then having to go to a mental evaluation. And this is just a really nice kid.
Yeah, you told me this story off the air a while ago, and it's unbelievable. I mean, you would think that a guy who has the audience to be able to reach people, to kind of just get some awareness about this situation, to maybe put some pressure.
You got $1 million fucking dollars, and you tell people to go out and carry signs or to go out and bullhorn and confront people, and they do, and they get in trouble, and you won't help them. You're a piece of shit. You're a fat fucking parasite piece of shit.
Can't put it any more blunt. No, it's fine. You know what? You got to call it like it is.
I don't know how to use. I don't have to swear. I don't have to do that, but I think I got my point across. That's what I think of people like that.
Exactly. But I mean, the fact is, this could have broke a whole different way if people had backed each other up. But like you said to begin with, nobody in that industry.
Can you imagine if a bunch of people just took his presentation, the one that got him into so much trouble, he had it all on PDFs, and then just 50, 60 communities around the country all of a sudden had these, whatever you call it when you get in there, speakings and petitions. Hey, it could have been something. Same with Edna Lane Brown. If they'd have just done their 1 year or whatever, they would have got out and been able to go just for the rest of their life from one speaking engagement to the next about how illegal the IRS is and the income tax and all that. Instead, they're in for life. Life, I tell you.
Right. And
hey, if you ever see me on the news, Charles, Chuck Ochelli, right, and there's a standoff at my house, I don't need a bunch of fucking idiots with machine guns showing up to support me. I can just say that right now. Now, if it's a full-on, all-out, like, race war, battle, something like that, well, I have my own posse for that.
Right.
But if I'm a protester, if I'm protesting the taxes, I'm willing to go do my time and come out and be martyred or whatever. But to die, now nobody even talks about Edna Lane Brown. But a lot of people exploited them for national exposure in the truth industry.
No, that's true. I mean, actually, that topic comes up a lot.
Lane Brown made quite a few people. They got just enough exposure where they got enough little cult following to where they're, bringing a little bit in, a little something in. And here's the problem. I've talked about it on my show. When your occupation is me, you can go take a hike off a short pier. What do? I solicit money from people who listen to my show. I go around and take donations to tell people they're getting fucked by the government and they're probably going to end up poor in a third world nation. But before you go, buy my DVD, folks. Buy my DVD. It's imperative. It's imperative that you buy my DVD so I can tell you what I could tell you right now for free, but I'm not. I won't. So it's all just a hustle. It's all a marketing hustle. It's all Don Lupree. It's all, remember Don Lupree? By placing tiny ads in a few newspapers, I generated residual income until I make $700 million a day now, placing ads in newspapers and magazines. Well, it was during the, the internet business craze back in the 90s. Internet toolbox, everybody, you can make $1,000 a day and you don't even have to work. That's Alex Jones.
No, and that's the thing. And that's not to begrudge anybody that, wants to support somebody that they think
no.
is doing their thing. Because, look, I accept an occasional donation.
Vinny Eastwood can suck my baloney, dude. Sorry. Don't tell me I sound like Vinny Eastwood.
What? Who said that? I didn't say that.
I'm just kidding. Somebody was messing with me.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait a minute. I didn't bring up Vinny Eastwood. Where'd that come from? No, I mean, that's not to begrudge somebody. If you want to support somebody, go ahead and do it. I mean, look, you wind up paying for these other people in one way or another anyway. If you pay for your cable or whatever, when you got TV and all that stuff, I mean, you wind up chipping into these people's pockets anyhow. So if you really believe in the work somebody's doing or the efforts that they're going out there and doing, there's nothing wrong with kicking them a couple of bucks. But when it turns into a giant for-profit situation and you got the power of all those listeners that you could turn to help a guy like you're talking about, your friend here.
Well,
okay.
if your ends are meeting like that, dude, yeah, there's no excuse. I mean, face it, most of the guys on network like ours don't have the kind of resources to help. I help anybody I can, whenever I can, but I don't have the kind of resources where, like, I could do really anything other than physically go help people.
Yeah, well, you and I are in the same. Well, actually, you're in a better spot than me.
Too bad. I mean, I'm my ends meet barely, but they do. I'm not yet in, they haven't foreclosed on me. I pay my taxes here.
No, I got you. I mean, I'm barely maintaining ownership of a computer that I'm doing this on, with payments and
Amen,
stuff
brother.
like
I
that.
know,
I mean,
man.
that's
Been
where
there,
I'm at.
been there.
I'm doing that plus, and you realize that Frankie will be a year old because,
Adorable, dude.
what, on the 29th. So it's 6 days from now, right? Yep. On the 29th, he'll be a year old.
So now people probably think I'm really bitter about, but I'm not. And I really don't want people to stop doing what they're doing. Just be honest about it.
Well, that's the thing. I don't sit there
Don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining.
That's the thing. When you're involved in one of these industries, okay, which again, most of the people on this network have no idea what we're even talking about because they're out there doing their thing because they believe in what they're saying. That's all they're doing. You know what I mean? Most of us funding ourselves, paying for our own websites, paying for, this and that and the third thing. People like me, like I said before, I mean, sometimes I just barely reach the take care of the cutoff on the internet even, right?
Well, you know what a lick is? If a lick is just somebody, he's not a friend, it's just somebody you sell stuff to. That's a lick, Something you buy for $5, you sell to him for 10. That's a lick. I just don't like when people treat me like I'm their lick, like, just, I don't know how to explain it, dude. It just irks me, and I felt cruddy when I was at Oracle, and I thought, hey, man, I'm not going to lie, dude. I thought that this was a legitimate, thing, that there was really real sponsors out there, that there was a real industry. It's not really. There's only room for a few chefs in the stew, really, and most of it, because I've gone across the country and I've tried to get in with some of these little groups, and dude, they're just, a lot of them are identifying potential, targets for the government. A lot of them work to stir things up. You know all about, PSYOP. And
well, that's the thing, is that in a lot of cases, people that seem to suddenly have the funds to do things, like you and I understand the reality of what this is, right?
The reality is there's some dark, sinister fucking shit that goes on that the word intrigue doesn't even really describe it.
Mm-hmm.
MK Ultra type things. That's exactly what that kid looks like. He looks like a kid who'd been raped and watched other kids get raped and, and just been beaten and traumatized. Of course, his, the bio and his mom and his dad and all that, it doesn't substantiate that kind of thing. But, he looks like a kid with no soul left.
Which kid are we talking about?
The Roof.
The shooter, yeah.
At the at the church in South Carolina or North Carolina. Is it South Carolina?
It's South Carolina. But isn't it wild, though, that every time one of these guys pulls one of these deals, they got that very same... I mean, look, I'm not trying to draw lines here.
He was on antidepressants.
Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is, like, you look at, like, Loeffner and all these other guys, right? They all have that same dazed look on their face. Now, whether this is a government program or this is just the general new normal, I'm not sure. Because drugging kids went into vogue. I mean, you're a little bit older than me.
Yeah, I was one of the first. I was, one of the first people around on Ritalin back in the 80s, in like 1982 or 83 when I was 12.
See, I came in the next wave of that because, let's see, 82. Well, I'm only, let's see, 84. I would have been 12. So when I got involved in the juvenile system, they turned around and they had to debate as to whether they were going to give me Prozac or not.
Oh, once I was in the system, I stopped. When they took me out of my home, I was like, I was a management problem from that minute on until I quit drinking and stopped getting in trouble, period.
Yeah, well, that was the thing, is I got segregated as soon as I stated that regardless of the fact that I was a prisoner technically, I had the right to refuse anything that wasn't life-saving.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I would just keep going. I mean, they just keep burying me deeper and deeper in the hole as I refuse to do things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
You go deeper and deeper into the hole. Basically, that's what happens. You always have the right to refuse, but then they change your custody level. They take you out of population. They put you in segregation. Blah blah blah. Well, I was always willing to go the whole distance with them. So
yeah. See, that's the thing is I kind of gave in after a little bit, and wound up, getting cut with the deal of, well, look, you can go to the hospital instead of being in a cell.
Until I was in total, you can't run away from a lockup. It's called escape from there. But all the group homes and the foster homes I ran away from.
Yeah, well, see, I skipped that whole process, and like I said, the deal was, look, you can stay in the cell with these guys, or you can comply, and we'll transfer you to a hospital for part of your sentence, and et cetera, et cetera. And I got to be honest with you, I took the drugs. I didn't want to stay in.
Time, man, and I don't. It doesn't. I do not hold it against you, brother, because it's rough, man. It's not. Hey, I'm not gonna lie, man. It ain't. I was institutionalized, so it was. First couple weeks was always rough, but there was already people there I've known for years, usually, wherever I ended up.
You always got to have your old friends show up. Oh, yeah. Wait, I know you. Yeah. I know how that works, but...
Well, they call it, and you're lucky you got out of it, that it's basically, once you get in that system, you end up doing life on the installment plan. A few people get out and then change their life, but most people, who are like me, they end up just... In and out. If they're not in jail, they're in rehab. If they're not in rehab, they're on the run with warrants for their arrest. If they're not in custody, they're on supervision.
Right. I mean, and they used to have to give you a bracelet and all that for that. I don't know if they still do that, but, the electronic monitoring came in probably around the time that you were graduating.
September 11th, 2001. I was sitting in front of my TV with my ankle monitor because I was on home confinement. I know exactly where I was on September 11th because I was on home confinement.
Well, there you go. At least you got proof of where you were because
man, I do.
Oh man, hey, speaking of jail and all this other stuff, this is also driving me crazy. This whole thing with these guys that escaped in New York.
Yeah, man. Totally. Now they say they found DNA evidence, not down where they were the other day searching down near Jules Camp. Well, not Jules Camp, but down the southern tier of New York, the Pennsylvania border, because somebody saw a couple of guys in a cornfield. So now they allegedly found DNA evidence in a cabin about 30 miles from Dannemora in Clinton, where the prison is. Mm-hmm. So now they don't know where these guys are. I'm not positive. My brother-in-law is a correctional officer, and all I can do is just go, come on, dude, really? This whole thing, they're like, these two escaped convicts are like Al-Qaeda. If all you got to do is say, hey, around dusk last night, I saw two guys in the back of my field. I don't know where they went or what they were doing. Next thing you know, there's 800 law enforcement out in your back field. So.
Yeah, well, isn't that amazing? And it seems really strange to me because with all the monitoring going on, right, we can't stop these two guys, and we're going to stop these infiltrators that are coming over covertly from the Canadian border, that are coming over, that are, the ISIS crisis. Let's not forget those guys in the equation, right? We're going to stop them. DHS is going to be able to deal with that, but we can't catch these two guys,
right,
who had nothing and got out of where they were at, right?
They couldn't catch 19 fucking Saudi Arabians with $4 box cutters. So yeah. I don't trust them for nothing.
Yeah, well, a lot of good it does, right? That's all I'm saying. And I'm not even, and I didn't even bother to look into their cases or anything else. I don't even know, exactly how deep that rabbit hole really goes or anything else.
You had that. You had Rebecca. What was her last name?
Roth.
Yeah, she was an amazing guest, dude. I'm going to try to get it on her contact list.
Oh, yeah.
I heard things that I really I heard or hadn't heard. Several things that she was discussing. About the secret. Code. I mean, how ludicrous it was that a guy with a box cutter could get in the cockpit.
Right, and how much sense does it make, and all this other. In other words, again, blowing apart the official explanation.
Of course.
Because, look, at the end of the day, I don't even care whose solution is correct. I mean, I had a guy on Saturday who really believes that there were absolutely no planes whatsoever.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I never wanted to believe that. Matter of fact, one of the first conversations I ever had with you off the air, I told you, I'm one of these guys, I'm not going to be screaming about no planes. Okay?
I don't
remember
bother
saying
with it.
It's
Or
not one of those.
or any of that, dude.
Right. It's not important. The reality is that we were lied to.
Something hit the buildings and we were lied to. It was not commercial passenger jets. No, I don't believe that.
There you go.
Because some people, I mean, a lot of people who say they saw, when you watch the footage, they didn't. They said what they saw hit those buildings wasn't a commercial. It was more like a military, unmarked military, gray, olive drab.
And you and I had the luxury of being in the New York area at the time. So guess what? We also heard about the possibility of commuter jets, which are much smaller than these large airliners and everything else.
And they're going to flood the tunnels, and there was all kinds of crazy stories going around here.
There's a lot of chaos in the area.
Yeah.
And a lot of wild stories, and also nobody ever brings this up. The mainstream media also reported on explosions at the Capitol building, all this other stuff. That's all gone. That's been scrubbed. But there was all sorts of reports going around. There really was an event that I don't think the mainstream had the complete script on. Either that or they couldn't pull everything off that they tried to, and they had to pull some of it back. I'm not sure, but all this stuff.
Well, I'm sure more was going on. I mean, Shanksville was probably something that was supposed to go down differently. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And I think it would be almost next to impossible for a passenger jet to have hit the Pentagon.
Yeah, I'm right in line with you there.
I think that physics allows for it. I mean, maybe it's like it's possible theoretically that it could theoretically happen, but I just don't believe it.
Well, not when you've got a nexus of witnesses that don't support the flight path at all, that would need to be extremely precise to pull off what they allege happened.
Right, and there were people that thought what they saw was a smaller plane, a military plane that was throwing things out of it, throwing things out into the lawn on its way past.
Which makes a lot more sense with what we're looking at.
Something like a drone, probably, in my opinion. I mean, they were using drones then. They were the big ones,
Oh, yeah. Hey, listen, we're just about to run totally out of time on my show. Of course, you're going to do a live show next, right?
Yep. I got Trevor Labonte coming on with me again.
Nice. Well, I'm going to listen to that. That's for sure.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Chuck.
Listen, I appreciate it, JJ. Anytime you want to stop in on a discussion, and definitely Rebecca, if you contact her, just tell her that you know me, and I'm sure she'll be happy to come on with you.
East Coast?
I can't remember where she's living right now. I think she might be on the East Coast.
All right. Well,
she was in Florida for quite a bit. Look, I appreciate it, man. JJink, of course, the host of Against the Wall. For anybody who doesn't know, you need to know. Because I love this guy.
All right. Stay cool. Stay chilly. It's the Ochelli Effect with Chuck Ochelli.
Thank you, sir. Anyway, like I was saying, people, yes, absolutely. There's always more to consider, and absolutely love JJ, especially because we are part of the Miserable Men's Club over there at Radio Free Blood too. But JJ, you can hear on Against the Wall at UCY.tv as well. So when you go to the UCY.tv website, if you went to UCY.tv/TOE, all you got to do is click on the shows thing up there and find Against the Wall and listen to what JJ does. it'll definitely give you a different spin on what's happening. And he doesn't play games. He's not in it for the industry of everything. He's not in it for doing anything but really just speaking his mind. And again, somebody I like. So that just about wraps it up for the Ochelli Effect here on UCY.TV radio once again. Thank you for tuning in, catching us further on down the line. If you heard us on YouTube or whatever.